There are two tales waiting for you, told one after the other by an odd set of two. So prepare yourself, dear one, because this is Drops of Darkness.
Hello there, I'm Cameron Helkuik, and welcome to the show. We usually give you one original dark fiction story, written and narrated by my co-host Anodyne Vaughn, followed by one of my found true scary stories. But this week, as some of you may already be able to tell, we're doing things a little bit differently. Today, you'll be hearing a selection of Stranger's best fiction stories from past episodes, and then next week, you'll hear a collection of mine. Not only does this give us a chance to indoctrinate our new listeners, it gives us a chance to work on new stories, artwork, and even some merch. If you enjoy what we do, we would be grateful if you could support our work by following the show and leaving a review. All right, enough of that. Stranger is waiting.
I am Stranger, and I tell only fantasies. Whenever your world has a grip on your throat, I am there, waiting to unleash the monsters that sleep in my mind, so that they may remind you that you have sharp teeth and claws of your own. From episode 16, Protectors. Claire was small for her age, which made the sheer volume of her wails all the more impressive. Thick streams of tears ran down her face, where they soaked into her bright pink pajamas. Between the shuddering sobs, she pleaded for her mother to leave the toys where they were. "I'm sorry, baby, but I told you, if I found you sleeping with everything, including your face, covered in stuffed animals, then they won't belong in your bed anymore. I don't even know how you breathe like that." By the armful, Claire's protectors, made of faux fur and stuffing, were dropped into her polka dot toy chest until there was only one left. Claire, beyond words at this point, held out her arms towards the lone survivor clasped in her mother's hand. It was a raggedy thing, an old bunny with lopsided buttons for eyes, sewn on with mismatching thread. "Okay, you can have one," said her mother after a moment's debate. "I'm sorry, honey, but it is dangerous to let you sleep like that. If it happens again, no more toys in your room." The girl was then gently ushered to the now empty bed, where she did her best to bury her face in her pillow, with the bunny held tight to her chest. Claire heard the goodnight, but did not respond. She listened for the sound of the light switch, and after the door shut, she waited for the footsteps to recede down the hall before slowly lifting her head to peer at the polka dot chest, where the rest of her toys were hidden away. With the lights off, her bedroom was cast in shades of black and blue by the night that poured through her window. On her walls, cartoon characters grinned from their posters, and a wooden cutout announced her name in large bouncy letters, like a menu with a single item to offer. With one eye still buried and the other half closed, Claire watched the closet doorknob and waited while the sound of her heartbeat thumped in her pillow. If she ran, she might be able to grab at least a few of her stuffed animals, but she'd have to be quick and quiet. So carefully, she lifted the covers, and inch by inch, she slid from her bed. By the time her toes touched the floor, her arm was shaking from holding up her duvet, and she didn't see how close to the edge of her mattress the bunny had slipped. With one last little scoot, Claire's feet met the floor without even a whisper of noise to announce her escape. Her eyes, now wide open, were trained on the brass knob on her closet door. It was perfectly still. She let out the breath she was holding, But before she could make a break for the chest, there was a soft thud of the bunny hitting the floor behind her. The doorknob began to violently rattle. The whole door shook as it battled against its frame and the thin piece of brass that kept it latched into place. Claire abandoned her plan and tried to scramble back under the blankets. But she had neither been quick or quiet, and the thing in the closet had heard her. "I see you," it said. The rattling ceased as the door opened, just slow enough to showcase the creak in its hinges. Claire's arms and legs went limp and lifeless, and she crumpled to the floor next to the bunny, who had just started to twitch. "So hungry," cried the thing in the closet as it pushed itself closer, its long body trailing out from the darkness behind the door. Strands of drool dripped and hung from its chin. They glinted as they swayed in the moonlight. Once it reached the small girl, it unhinged its jaw, wrapped its cold hands around her soft shoulders, and started to eat. It didn't see how her mouth was now a neat row of stitches, or how her eyes were now lopsided buttons sewn on with mismatching thread. Its hunger was endless. Even after it had started to choke on her fabric and stuffing, it couldn't keep itself from continuing to chew. All it could do was swallow, choke, and writhe. Deeper it lodged in its throat the girl whose flesh and bones had been traded for the cloth and the thread of her protectors, whose small bodies churned into a singular form as they rose and stepped out of the chest, their borrowed bones clicking in place, and the flesh still wet with tears wrapping around them. Together they enveloped the thing in the closet whole, and when they started to eat it, they did not choke, no matter how much the thing thrashed. "Claire?" Light from the hallway streamed through the cracked door. "Did you fall out of bed?" Her mother, who'd heard the thud from downstairs, stepped into the room and stared at the mound on the floor. Barely visible under the stuffed animals with their watchful glass eyes, Claire laid curled up and sleeping, the now shredded bunny gripped tight in her hands, its eyes missing. "You know what this means," sighed Claire's mother as she tucked her back in her bed. "No more toys in your room. And I'm not sewing these eyes back on again." From episode 25, My Monster. A lucky majority of people get to wonder what things their cat sees when they stare into a dark corner, while the rest of us know all too well what they're looking at. Ghosts and demons and shadow people, they all come to mind, but there are others, far older and far worse. And they like being seen. Our old cat, he was a mess. Whatever life he'd had before ending up at the shelter was clearly a hard one. One ear was missing completely, and the other had been shredded down to a jagged-looking stump. What teeth he had left were crooked and yellow, and his fur, although surprisingly soft, was speckled with scars in all sorts of shapes, sizes, and colors. We were told he'd been there the longest, and it was easy enough to guess why, even with a wall of glass separating us and the tabby cat that paced on the other side. The caretaker kept a safe distance as she explained how he was happiest when he got to make good use of his one remaining canine, or when his claws were buried deep into something or someone. Even though I knew it wouldn't work to sway the decision, I appreciated the caretaker's honesty. I did not want a cat, especially that cat. But my partner, June, she did. And I wanted June. And June loves grumpy, broken things. Her being with me was proof enough of that. So, to the cat's dismay, we ended his year-long reign of terror by taking him home. The cardboard box that poor woman wrestled him into barely lasted the drive at the parking lot. And by the time we got home, both June and I were bloody. Scraggly, jagged things, him and I were. But June loved us anyway. She named him Monster, and I thought it was a silly name, but I couldn't argue that it seemed fitting, and I couldn't think of any better suggestions. Or, more likely, I didn't bother to try. I didn't want another scary thing. I would have given anything to live in a house where I could be the only one home and actually be alone. To not have something reaching their long fingers out from the corners, impatient to have my utmost and terrified attention. But now here I was, picking which corner of our small house I'd mind having smell like a litter box the least, all for this more creature than cat, who I was absolutely sure wouldn't bother to wait for us to die or even be all that hungry before eating our faces. For the first 3 days, we didn't see him, but just as June was starting to worry and I was starting to hope, I found him. He was sitting on my side of our unmade bed, his stump of an ear twitching like mad as he stared into the same corner I'd been haunted by until sunrise, while June snored softly beside me. Monster could see them too, but they kept their fingers and tongues and teeth to themselves. They didn't reach for him like they did me. They didn't like when he watched them, and I don't think he liked that he couldn't do much more than chase them deeper into their dark spaces. Soon, there were no more dark spaces, and much less room in our bed, as Monster claimed a large portion of it to sprawl out on. Time passed, and we became a bit less broken, a bit less jagged, he and I, as life started to seem a little less like something we just had to survive. Over the years, there was the rare occurrence of a purr or a glimpse of biscuits being made in the sun, and we would warn him that he was dangerously close to needing a new name. But he would quickly find a way to reclaim it. And we loved him anyway. Plus, it was one of those names that the staff at the vet always got a kick out of. We'd been there a lot, and any bit of good humor is welcome when you're just waiting for more bad news. I already knew our time with him was coming to an end. As soon as I started seeing them in the corners again, I knew they wanted back in. And there was more of them now. There was time to make up for, and they were eager to start. But when they reached out from the corners, it wasn't for me. They wanted him. My monster wasn't so jagged anymore, and he was too tired to scare them away. It was late that night, and I'd told June to go get some sleep just as I felt the first of their fingers part the hair down my neck. I pulled Monster into my lap and curled around him as they came out. It wouldn't be enough. I knew that. But I had to try. He took his last breath against my chest, and I thought death had ended his reign of terror for good. But I should have known better. That cat shoved his last breath back up his throat in a low, rumbling yowl. And just as that terrifying sound ended, I heard him run and hiss and tear and bite. Wherever these things truly were, he was there too now. And with his old, broken body left behind, he was free to do much more than chase them away. They haven't been back since that night, but I'm still never alone. In every corner, there is my monster, making good use of his teeth and burying his claws as he haunts his house.
Hello, everyone. In between stories, we like to highlight a cause that is worth our collective attention. For April, in Sexual Assault Awareness Month, we decided to highlight the National Sexual Violence Resource Center. The NSVRC enables advocates to combat sexual harassment, assault, and abuse by giving them the research and tools they need. They recognize that putting an end to sexual violence goes hand in hand with stopping racism, sexism, and every other type of oppression. You can find out more and donate at www.nsvrc.org or from the link on our website at dropsofdarkness.com. Now, back into the shadows we go.
From episode 32, Invasive.
Message from Angie. Had fun on the hike today. Sorry you got a bit scraped up, but glad you were able to find what you needed for your research. You'll have to give me an update on your new little friend at lunch on Friday.
Communication and spread of phytopathogenic fungi. Quantitative measurements of mycelial network establishment on host cells. Jamie Fitzgerald, 2024. A life cycle case study of a parasitic fungus found in the Pacific Northwest. Research log, April 9th. Collected a fresh sample of the Cordyceps militaris fungus in the Solduck Valley on the Olympic Peninsula. Specimen appears to be in a late-stage fruiting state, emerging from an undetermined insect pupa host. The stromata stalks are healthy, based on the vivid orange coloration and the number of spore sacs. Multiple specimens were found at the site, despite their rarity in this area, indicating ideal growing conditions present in the local environment. April 10th. Specimen is exhibiting an unexpected growth rate in the 24-hour period since collection. Under a microscope, tissue slides show atypical presentation within multiple structures of the fungal body. Samples have been sent off to confirm this specimen is in fact Cordyceps militaris. April 11th. The unique structures are now easily seen without a microscope due to the fungus's aggressive growth rate. It appears that mycelial branches have sprouted in varying lengths across the entirety of the fungal body. The spore sacs have doubled in size and have migrated to the highest point of the stromata. My current hypothesis is that it's attempting to collect information on the surrounding environment before releasing the spores. If that is the case, that means that this fungus is deciding where it wants to spread. It's likely that this is a different, more aggressive species of Cordyceps that's been introduced into the area, quite possibly invasive. We'll contact the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife, and we'll continue to monitor to collect any relevant data. Multiple insect pupae have been scattered around the specimen as potential new hosts. Hopefully it takes the bait and I'm able to start an accurate assessment of its incubation period.
Message from Angie. Hey, we still on for lunch today? I'm here and I grabbed us a booth. If you're just running late, I can order you a drink and sent a smiling emoji.
April 12th. Specimen is confirmed to be Cordyceps militaris. At least it was when the samples were collected. It appears now that the Cordyceps were hosting a separate unknown type of phytopathogenic fungus that has taken over its mycelial network and spore structures. A parasite of parasites. All the pupae hosts, 7 in total, have been connected by the branching mycelium fibers, and at least 2/3 of the visible spore sacs have ruptured. It appears that the specimen uses the host cordyceps as an anchor as it spreads. Although accelerated, the invasion process of the host body appears to be identical to that of standard Cordyceps militaris. Paralysis, followed by mummification. Fish and wildlife are sending someone out to the area to investigate. We'll continue to monitor as invasion progresses.
Message from Angie. Hey, no sweat about lunch yesterday. I know you've been really busy lately. Just let me know when you're feeling up to hang out. I miss you. Message from Angie. Raj said he saw you in the lab and you were limping. Did you ever get your leg looked at after you cut it on our hike?
April 13th. It got a rat. I'm not sure how. Rat was half paralyzed when found, but still trying to drag itself and the specimen towards the window. The specimen has been burned. I tried calling Fish and Wildlife, but no one will be there until Monday. I'm going home. Quantitative measurements of newly discovered parasitic fungi invasion in a human host. A case study by Jamie Fitzgerald, 2024. April 14th. Everything hurts, inside and out. Note that pain receptors remain fully functional, even in mid-stage of invasion. Paralysis began at infection site, in this case, left leg, and spread across lower half of body after 5 days. But it is spreading faster as of day 6. I suspect because I am no longer mobile, I am now only useful as sustenance, as the fungus searches for a new host. Tissue death began as early as day 4 and is progressing quickly.
Message from Angie. It's been a few days. Are you okay? Raj said some people from Fish and Wildlife came by the lab looking for you. Message from Angie. I know our spare keys are only for emergencies, and I might be a bit overdramatic right now, but no one's heard from you, and I'm counting that as an emergency. I'll be at your place in 20.
April 15th. The mycelium network has reached my brain. I can feel the small, scattered shocks of their electrical signals. They're using my memories to find food. Note that in the end stage of invasion, all sensation, including pain, is gone. Cognitive awareness, including fear, still fully present. Stomata stalks have emerged from multiple areas: legs, hip, stomach. Spore sacs have already started to rupture. Angie, I'm sure that you'll find this. So thank you for making sure I have someone to say goodbye to. I'm just sorry that it was me that you decided to always be there for. I'm afraid that what I want to thank you for is what's put you in more danger than anyone else. I've tried to not think of your face. I'm sorry I tried. But I know they've seen it in my head. They've seen you. I'm so sorry.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Drops of Darkness, which is written, voiced, and produced by Anodyne Vaughn and Cameron Helkuik. If you enjoyed your drift into the shadows, help keep the stories alive by sharing the show, leaving a review, And if you really want to earn the favor of these dark storytellers, tether yourself to their world by tapping subscribe. If you have a true paranormal story of your own that you'd like to be read by someone, you can make the offering to submissions@dropsofdarkness.com or through the form on our website. Until next time, dear one, and remember, when the darkness looks your way, hold its gate.